Alright, hello everyone, and welcome to the Black Box Podcast, BBOR, Black Box Online Radio. And today is another edition of Occult Mondays here on BBOR, where we just talk about anything related to the occult, and we've done a lot, mostly just discussing evil over the last couple episodes. Today we're going to begin with something a little different. Here I have a copy of a novel by James Rollins. This is Ice Hunt, once again by James Rollins. Let's read a little. She tried to dismiss it, just the shadows playing tricks. She said aloud, hoping her own voice would comfort her, but the echoes of her words spooked her. They sounded unnaturally loud. That is sort of a starting point where we're going to go with this discussion. In short, it's just like, I really wanted to know, how do people get to these types of ghost stories? How do people get to, hearing those noises in the night, and then just saying, hey, that's not the wind, that's a ghost? Like, how do you get to that point in your thinking? When I was younger, I came up with sort of the axiom when I was just like, real life is boring. Real life is not interesting. So people need to just sort of create these things to make it seem more interesting. No one wants to admit that those noises in the night are just the wind. No, it must be a ghost. It must be an evil spirit. It must be absolutely anything other than just, the wind or the rain or something. It's like, you hear a noise in the house. Maybe you have an old creaky floorboard that needs to be fixed. Nah, must be ghosts. Or if something goes missing or someone goes missing, it must be aliens. How do you get to that level of thinking? Well, I've encountered a book from Jesse Walker. I always wanted to call him Jesse Walters for some reason. I guess I was thinking of Jesse Waters on Fox News, but no, this is Jesse Walker, who wrote The United States of Paranoia, A Conspiracy. And he really gets into a lot of this stuff. I tried to watch one of his presentations twice, and I failed both times. I was just, spaced out, and I couldn't really focus. But the third time, I finally, listened to what he was saying. He did an interview with libertarianism.org, I believe is the name. And he did some other presentations promoting his book. It's all on YouTube. He has some great free resources. And he just sort of gives kind of explanations about how we get to this level when we start to think that those noises in the night are just ghost stories. Or are just ghosts. Because human beings are pattern-seeking, story-oriented creatures. We love to tell stories. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's almost just like, it's not so much that real life is boring so people need to make this stuff up. It's more like people don't actually know what that is, so they compose a story because it is kind of just in our nature. It's like, and it's such a better story to hear that the noises in the night are coming from a ghost as opposed to, just being the wind or old floorboards or the elements. Now, Jesse Walker is someone who also was given a question at one of his Q&A things after he gives a presentation on his book. Somebody asked him, is religion a conspiracy? And this is something that I think is a very, very big question. And it's a good question, too, because the first person I ever heard who got into conspiracy theory science, if you want to call it that, like giving the sort of explanations about why do we have conspiracies, which Jesse Walker's all about, it was Michael Barkin. He was the first one that I heard. And Michael Barkin wrote a book called A Culture of Conspiracy, and someone asked him that same question, is religion a conspiracy? And he kind of just dodged the question, like he didn't want to give it a straight answer. And the person who was asking the question, they phrased it kind of like this, when they were like, it's like even going back to the Stone Age or the cave times, the parents don't tell the kid, don't touch the fire, you'll get burned. What they say is, don't touch the fire god will hurt you. And it's like, they asked the same question to Jesse Walker. is religion a conspiracy? Is this people hiding the truth for a manipulative outcome? And it's like, he actually had probably a better answer than I could have ever produced when he was just like, no. But yeah, he said no, but he said religion is a current that runs through conspiracy theories. And by current, he means it's something that is connected. I mean, a conspiracy can be religious, but, it's not, the entirety of religion is not a conspiracy theory. It could be connected to other conspiracy theories. I mean, like the church could be associated with a conspiracy, or you could have a conspiracy theory that is religious in origin, but the entirety of religion is not a conspiracy theory in itself. It, has many different aspects to it. I mean, more or less, that was his answer. And I was like, wow, that's probably better than anything I could have ever produced on that exact subject. I just thought it was fascinating that he said that, because he also said the same word, current, when he was asked a question about neocons and the war in Iraq. Like, would you call the neocons who planned the war in Iraq a conspiracy theory? Is that a conspiracy theory? And the response to that is just like, once again, it's a current that's running through it. Meaning that neoconservatism in itself is not, some massive conspiracy theory, but maybe there are times when it connects to two or more people plotting something for usually a malicious reason. But what I thought was, one of the big things that we get when it comes to things like ghost stories, and this is getting away from religion and definitely away from neoconservatism, is that the human beings like to look for patterns, and human beings like to look for answers, and we sort of try to say, what could we put in this gap? When we have a gap for something that we don't know, what type of information could we put there that would form a pattern? And we try to understand the situations. But one of the big things that Walker talks about is that it's like, this has nothing to do with intelligence. So many people are just like, they're always bringing up the point about how someone who is very educated is starting to believe in things that are far out or on the fringe. And it's like, it has nothing to do with intelligence. It doesn't matter how educated somebody is or how smart they are. All human beings who have, the ability to think. We're not talking about people in comas. So, that's another Jesse Walker line, actually. So it's like, all people, who can think, form patterns, irrespective of their intelligence level. So you might be wondering, why is an educated person, believing in ghosts or aliens or voodoo? Well, it's like all human beings do this to an extent. We all look for patterns and we all create stories. One thing that I thought was kind of missing in his presentation was culture. And this is something that has been discussed by Alan Watts and Carl Jung, whereas they say that the storytelling thing and seeking patterns to create stories, they're like, that is mostly from the Western world. That is how, what is Carl Jung's exact word? It's how people in the Western world get in touch with the unconscious. And by unconscious, I mean, it's about how they sort of understand, I guess, spirituality and the meaning of the universe and stuff like that. They use storytelling to do so. And we look at, Judaism and Christianity. Sure, we look at the Greeks and the Romans, like the stories of Zeus and Jupiter. Yes, absolutely. Or even just for the simple fact that we have, stories that are associated with just folklore and nature and even old, things like Santa Claus, even. That's their stories about that in itself, It's like, it's not only about religion, they can be about anything. We use stories to get in touch with the unconscious. Whereas, in the East, you have the things like Chinese Taoism and Zen Buddhism, where it's all about eliminating. Jainism and Hinduism do this too, especially Jainism. It's about eliminating desire. It's just about removing, the destruction within you, that whole notion of inner peace. And there was a line by Alan Watts, who was giving a presentation on Carl Jung, and he just said, Westerners should be very careful if they try to do that. And he just sort of said that kind of out of place, like if a Westerner just tries to eliminate all of their feelings, or just tries to eliminate everything, eliminate all the destruction in you and just try to get that sort of inner peace that the Eastern spiritualities and folklore talk about, then that can be dangerous. But he didn't give an exact explanation why. And the only thing I could think of, he just means like if for Westerners like myself and maybe you too, it's sort of, I think he's going at something like it's going to create a vacuum and then you're just going to end up clinging to the first thing that comes at you. When you have sort of a vacuum of belief, you're just going to start attaching yourself to whatever idea that comes at you next, no matter how wacky. But, I'm just kind of guessing with that one. So, I think it's really eye-opening to sort of view that, as human beings, we try to make sense of the world. And definitely in Western civilization, we try to understand things, but we also have this built-in passion for entertainment and for ideas and for seeking out, for seeking out the most entertaining story possible, even for probably the smallest reason that it would get more people to listen to it and that you would want to listen to it yourself. So it's like, this applies to so many things. And, I talked about, some religious things for a little while, but the original thing I mentioned was noises in the night that could come from ghosts. What I think that just sort of represents is two big points that, that were put up by Walker, that absolutely anybody can come to that conclusion in the Western world. It has nothing to do with intelligence. It has nothing to do with, your particular upbringing. It's just like all of us Westerners like to create stories for explanations. We use stories to explain things. We seek out patterns and we put them in the events and order form of a story to understand things. It's just not all of us talk about ghosts. Not all of us want to talk about demons, or not all of us want to talk about, maybe fairies, if you want to call it that. It's whatever we would find the most entertaining. It's whatever we would find to be, like the most fascinating subject for us. So, in short, it's kind of just like to each his own, and we're just going to try and seek out that type of content. Okay? Well, that's all for me now. That's kind of this sort of, this was a very unexpected, long-winded rant, but that's all for me now. If you have anything to say, please drop a comment below, and until next time.